Now today I am going to say about the different types of carbon atoms that is present in alkane. Now the first type is primary carbon atom. Primary carbon atom is a carbon atom linked to one another carbon or no other carbon. In case of methane, carbon is linked to no other carbon. There is no carbon here. Whereas here this carbon is linked to one carbon. So such carbon is called primary carbon. So this is a primary carbon, this is a primary carbon. Okay. And the hydrogen which is attached to the primary carbon is also known as primary hydrogen. Now the secondary carbon atom is the second type. We represent primary carbon by the symbol 1 raised 0, that is degree. Then secondary carbon is denoted by 2 raised 0. Okay. Now here in secondary carbon, a carbon linked to two other carbon is called secondary carbon. Example, look at this carbon. It is linked to one carbon this side, another carbon to this side. So this is called secondary carbon. So this is a secondary carbon atom. And the hydrogen which is connected to secondary carbon is secondary hydrogen. Okay. So there are two secondary hydrogen on this carbon. Now let us see the third type, that is tertiary carbon atom. Tertiary carbon atom is denoted by a symbol 3 raised 0, and this carbon atom is a carbon atom which is connected to three other carbons. So this is a tertiary carbon atom which is connected to 1, 2, 3 other carbon. So center carbon, this carbon is called tertiary carbon, and the hydrogen attached to it is called tertiary hydrogen. Now move on to the fourth one, quaternary carbon atom, 4 raised 0. Now this carbon which is linked to four other carbon is called quaternary carbon. So this is a carbon which is called quaternary carbon. Okay. So it is linked to the four other carbon. So this carbon, center carbon, is called quaternary carbon. Now let us take an example. Now look at this example and see how many primary carbon atoms are there. So this is a primary carbon atom which is linked to one another carbon. This is again a primary carbon atom which is linked to one other. This is also primary carbon. Then this is another primary carbon. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 primary carbon atoms are there. Okay. So 4 is the number. Now the secondary carbon atom, look here. This is a secondary carbon linked to two other carbon. Here also there is a secondary carbon linked to two other carbon. So the number of secondary carbon is 2. Tertiary carbon is a carbon which is linked to 3. Look here, there is no tertiary carbon. So the number is 0. No other tertiary carbon is there. Quaternary carbon is a carbon linked to 4 other carbons. So there is one carbon which is quaternary carbon. Now look at this example. Here primary carbon is this one. This is also primary. This. So total primary carbon here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is the number. 5 carbon is there. Now secondary carbon, there is 1 here. This is linked to 2 other carbons. So this is secondary carbon. This is secondary carbon present. Okay. So 1 secondary carbon. Tertiary carbon, it is one which is linked to 3 other. 1, 2, 3. 3 tertiary carbon is there. Sorry. There is a carbon which is linked to 3 other carbons. So this is tertiary carbon. So there is 1 tertiary carbon. Okay. So that is the tertiary carbon. Quaternary carbon present again 1. This is a quaternary carbon which is linked to 4 other carbon. So number is 1. So primary carbon 5, secondary carbon 1, tertiary carbon 1, and quaternary carbon 1. And look here, quaternary carbon doesn't have hydrogen. So there is no quaternary hydrogen, only primary, secondary and tertiary hydrogen is present in any of the alkane. So these are the different types. Now let us move on to the different types of alkyl form. When methane is losing, methane has primary carbon and primary hydrogen. When primary hydrogen is lost, you will see that it forms methyl CH3 as the alkyl group. When ethane loses one primary hydrogen, it is forming ethyl. Propane, when it is losing primary hydrogen, it is forming propyl. Any of the primary hydrogen, if it is lost, it is forming propyl. But there is a secondary hydrogen in propane. If this hydrogen is lost, we call that alkyl as secondary propyl or isopropyl. Okay. So this is called isopropyl. Okay. Isopropyl. Now look at the third one, butane. It's a normal butane. When primary hydrogen is lost, any of one primary hydrogen lost, you are getting normal butyl. And if there is hydrogen, which is secondary hydrogen lost, we will be calling it as secondary butyl. Okay, so this is secondary butyl because secondary hydrogen is lost. Now look at the isobutane. This is a compound called isobutane. From this, one primary hydrogen, if it is lost, it is called here butyl. Okay, this is primary butyl. Okay, and here if it is lost, tertiary hydrogen, we will be calling it as tertiary butyl. Okay, this is called as tertiary butyl. Okay, so this is isobutyl, this is tertiary butyl because tertiary hydrogen is lost. So that's about the different alkyls formed by the alkane.